Thomas Mercer's mouth was on a dying woman's lips when the security guards grabbed him. He felt their hands clench around his arms just as her chest rose for the first time in 40 seconds. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and alive, while someone behind him shouted about calling the police. Thomas barely registered the words. His own heart hammered so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. The woman on the marble floor of the Grandview Center lobby gasped, really gasped, pulling air into her lungs like someone breaking the surface of deep water. "Get him away from her," a voice commanded. Sharp, male, furious. Thomas's knees buckled as the guards yanked him backward. His hands were still shaking from the compressions. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The CPR training from his Navy days had kicked in without thought when he'd seen her collapse near the fountain. No pulse, lips going blue. He'd dropped his cleaning cart and run. The woman sat up slowly, one hand pressed to her chest. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Thomas made in 3 months. Diamond earrings caught the light. Her dark hair had come loose from its clip. "What happened?" Her voice was hoarse. "This man assaulted you, Ms. Chen," the guard started. "Catherine," Thomas interrupted, his own voice shaking. He'd seen her name on the building directory 100 times. Catherine Price, CEO, Price Industries. 43rd floor. "I mean, Ms. Price. You collapsed. You weren't breathing. I gave you CPR." She stared at him, then at the small crowd that had gathered. 20 people, maybe 30, all with their phones out. All filming. Thomas felt his stomach drop. He was kissing her, someone said. A woman in yoga clothes. I saw him. She was just lying there and he was on top of her, kissing her. "I was giving rescue breaths," Thomas said. His voice came out too loud. Defensive. She had no pulse. "I'm certified. I was in the Navy. I know CPR." The head security guard's grip tightened. "Sir, you need to come with us." Catherine Price touched her throat. She looked pale. Shocked. "I don't remember. I was walking and then everything went dark." "Cardiac event, probably," Thomas said. He was still shaking. "You need to go to the hospital. Right now. You could have another episode." One of the guards pulled out handcuffs. "Wait," Catherine said, but her voice was weak. A paramedic team rushed through the doors, called by someone in the crowd, and suddenly Thomas was being pushed aside as they surrounded her. He caught a glimpse of her face as they loaded her onto a stretcher. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. Confusion, maybe, or suspicion. "Come on," the guard said. "Security office. Now." Thomas didn't resist. What would be the point? He'd done what anyone would do. What anyone should do. But as they walked him past his abandoned cleaning cart with its mop and bucket and bottles of industrial cleaner, past the marble fountain where Catherine Price's briefcase still lay on its side, he felt the full weight of what had just happened settling over him. Nobody was going to believe him. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Text from his daughter's school. Maya had thrown up in class again. Could he please come pick her up? Thomas closed his eyes. He had 2 hours left on his shift. He needed those 2 hours. He needed every single hour. "I need to make a call," he said to the guard. "After we talk to the police. My daughter's sick. She needs me." The guard didn't even look at him. They put Thomas in a windowless room with a metal table and 2 chairs. Like an interrogation room in a movie, except the table had coffee rings on it and someone had scratched the words lawyer up into the surface with a key or a pen. Thomas sat today. His hands had finally stopped shaking, but now his right knee bounced uncontrollably, a nervous habit from childhood that Maya always teased him about. The door opened. 2 police officers, a man and a woman. The woman had kind eyes. That made Thomas nervous. Kind eyes meant she'd be disappointed when she decided not to believe him. "Mr. Mercer." She sat across from him. "I'm Officer Reyes. This is Officer Park. We need to ask you some questions about the incident with Catherine Price." "I gave her CPR," Thomas said immediately. "She collapsed. She wasn't breathing. I'm trained. I was a Navy corpsman for 6 years. I know what I'm doing." Officer Reyes nodded slowly. "Several witnesses say they saw you kissing Ms. Price while she was unconscious on the floor. Rescue breaths. That's part of CPR. You do chest compressions and then you give breaths." I tilted her head back, pinched her nose, made a seal with my mouth, and breathed into her lungs. Twice. Then back to compressions. That's the protocol. Some people are saying you were on top of her for several minutes. I was doing compressions. You have to be over them to do compressions. You lock your elbows and use your body weight. That's how it works. Thomas heard his voice rising and forced himself to take a breath. Getting angry wouldn't help. Nothing would help. Look, you can check. Call the American Heart Association. Call the Navy. I'm certified. I was certified until 2019, and even after it expired, the training doesn't just disappear. When you see someone dying, you act. Officer Park leaned against the wall. Why were you in that part of the building? According to the security manager, your assignment is the lower floors. Retail level and parking garage. Thomas felt something cold slide down his spine. I was emptying the trash cans by the fountain. That's part of my route. At 11:30 in the morning. The fountain area gets busy during lunch. I do it before the rush. They both stared at him. Do you know who Catherine Price is? Officer Reyes asked. She owns the building. Price Industries. Tech company. Government contracts. Thomas swallowed. I've seen her in the elevator a few times. She always says good morning. She's polite. She's worth $800 million, Officer Park said. The number hung in the air. Thomas thought about the $17 in his checking account. The note is from the electric company. Maya's medical bills stacked on the kitchen counter like a paper tower of debt. I wasn't trying to rob her, he said quietly. I was trying to save her life. His phone buzzed again. Same number. The school. Thomas pulled it out, and Officer Reyes' hand moved to her belt. Not to her gun, but close enough that Thomas saw the gesture. It's my daughter's school. She's 8. She's sick. I need to pick her up. He showed them the screen. 3 missed calls now. Officer Reyes' expression softened. You can call them back in a minute. We're almost done here. But they weren't almost done. They kept him for another hour, asking the same questions in different ways. Did he know Catherine Price personally? Had he ever spoken to her beyond saying good morning? Had he ever been to the 43rd floor? Did he have any financial problems? Any gambling debts? Any history of violence or sexual misconduct? No, 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 no. When they finally let him go, they kept his phone number and told him not to leave the city. Outside the security office, Thomas found his supervisor waiting. Dale Whitmore, 50 years old with a face like a clenched fist. You're suspended, Dale said. Pending investigation. Suspended? I saved her life. You put your hands on a tenant. You violated protocol. Company policy is to call 911 and wait for medical professionals. She would have died. Dale shrugged. That's what 9/11 is for. Clean out your locker. You can pick up your final paycheck on Friday. Final. Thomas's voice cracked. You're firing me. Suspended pending investigation, Dale repeated. But between you and me, yeah, you're done. Price Industries owns this building and 6 others we contract with. They want you gone. You're gone. Thomas opened his mouth, closed it. What could he possibly say? He'd worked for Bright Clean Services for 3 years. Night shifts, weekend shifts, holiday shifts. He'd cleaned toilets and mopped floors and scraped gum off marble and never once complained. He'd been on time every single day except when Maya was in the hospital last year. And even then he'd only missed 2 shifts. He walked to his locker in a daze. Another janitor, Curtis, watched him from across the break room but didn't say anything. Nobody said anything. They all knew. By now everyone knew. Thomas grabbed his spare uniform shirt and his lunchbox. Inside the lunchbox was half a sandwich Maya had made him that morning. Peanut butter and jelly with the crust carefully cut off because she knew he didn't like crusts. His throat closed up. The bus ride to Maya's school took 35 minutes. Thomas sat in the back and watched the city roll past. Seattle in November. Gray sky, gray water, gray buildings. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Catherine Price was probably at the hospital, surrounded by the best doctors money could buy. She was alive because of him, and he'd just lost his job because of her. Maya was waiting in the nurse's office with a trash can next to her chair and a cold compress on her forehead. She looked so small, so pale. Her dark hair was in 2 braids that were coming loose. When she saw Thomas, Her face crumpled. "Daddy, I threw up." "I know, baby. It's okay. Let's get you home." The nurse, Mrs. Kim, gave him a sympathetic look. "She's been running a fever. 101.2. Has she been sick?" "On and off for a few weeks." Thomas signed the checkout sheet. His hand was still shaking slightly. "You might want to take her to the doctor." "Yeah, I will." He wouldn't. He couldn't afford to. Not without insurance. Not with the bills they already had. Maya held his hand on the walk to the bus stop. She was quiet, which meant she felt really bad. Usually she chatted non-stop about school and her friends and the book she was reading. Today she just leaned against him and breathed through her mouth. "Dad," she said finally, "did something bad happen?" Thomas looked down at her. 8 years old and already she could read him perfectly. "Why do you ask?" "You feel sad." He pulled her closer. "Just a rough day at work, sweet pea. Nothing for you to worry about." But she was already worried. He could see it in her eyes. Kids weren't stupid. Maya knew they were struggling. She knew her clothes came from Goodwill. She knew her birthday party last month had been just the two of them in a grocery store cake. She knew her mom had left when she was 3 and never looked back, and that it was just the two of them against the world. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that should have been condemned 10 years ago. The elevator was broken again, so Thomas carried Maya up the stairs. By the time they reached their door, he was breathing hard. When had he gotten so out of shape? When had climbing 3 flights become difficult? Inside, Maya went straight to the couch and curled up under the blanket that lived there permanently. Thomas checked the kitchen. 2 cans of soup, half a box of crackers, string cheese that was probably still good. He'd been planning to grocery shop after his shift today. That wasn't going to happen now. He made Maya soup and brought it to her with crackers and ginger ale. She picked at it. Thomas sat next to her and turned on the television. Some cartoon about talking dogs. Maya usually loved it, but today she just stayed at the screen without really watching. "Dad," she said, "I don't feel good." "I know, baby. Am I going to die?" His heart stopped. "What?" No, Maya. You have a stomach bug. You're going to be fine." Kayla's mom said Kayla's grandma died because she was sick and they couldn't afford the hospital. Thomas closed his eyes. "That's not going to happen to you." "How do you know?" "Because I won't let it," he wanted to say. "Because I would do anything, sell anything, steal anything to keep you safe. Because you're all I have and I'm all you have and that has to be enough. Because I'm your dad," he said instead. "And dads know these things." She seemed satisfied with that. She ate a little more soup and then fell asleep with her head on his lap. Thomas sat there as the afternoon faded into evening, watching her breathe. In, out, so steady, so alive. His phone was buzzing again. He'd forgotten he still had it. Text messages now. From numbers he didn't recognize. "So what you did at the Grandview Center. Disgusting. You're a predator. Hope you rot in jail." Thomas stayed at the messages. Then he opened Facebook. The video was already there. Someone had posted it in a local news group. The quality was shaky but clear enough. Him, Catherine Price. His mouth on hers. The angle made it look wrong. It looked like he was attacking her. The caption said, "Janitor assaults woman in lobby of Grandview Center." 3,000 shares. 5,000. The comments were worse than the texts. "This is why women can't trust anyone. He should be in prison." Look at him. He knew exactly what he was doing. A few people tried to defend him. He was giving CPR. She wasn't breathing. But they were drowned out by the flood of anger. Thomas put his phone face down on the coffee table. His hands were shaking again. Maya stirred in her sleep and made a small sound. He stroked her hair until she settled. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow he'd figure out what to do. Tomorrow he'd find another job. Tomorrow he'd fix this. But tomorrow came, and everything got worse. 6 months earlier, Thomas Mercer had believed in second chances. He'd stood in this same apartment, boxes stacked against the walls, and told Maya they were starting over. Clean slate. New city. The Navy had given him skills. He could support them. They'd be okay. "I like it here," Maya had said, standing at the window. 7 years old then, all elbows and gap-toothed smiles. "Can I see the Space Needle from here?" "Not from this window." But it's in the city. We can visit. Promise. Promise. He'd meant it. He'd meant every promise he'd made her. But Seattle was expensive in ways Spokane never had been. The apartment that seemed affordable became suffocating when he factored in utilities and food and Maya's school supplies. The job at Bright Clean Services paid $12 an hour. 40 hours a week when he could get them. Sometimes less. Never more. Before that, there had been Spokane. Before that, the Navy. Before that, a childhood in small-town Oregon that Thomas tried not to think about. But the memory that haunted him most was from 2 years ago. Phoenix, Arizona. 103 degrees. His wife Rachel in their bedroom, suitcase open on the bed. "I can't do this anymore," she'd said. No tears. That was the worst part. She'd already cried all her tears. "I can't watch you fail. I can't watch us fall apart. We're not falling apart. I'm looking for work. I have interviews. You always have interviews. And then you don't get the job because you can't settle. You can't commit to something you think is beneath you. I'm not asking to run the company. I just want something that uses what I learned. What I trained for. I was a corpsman. I saved lives. And now I'm supposed to stock shelves at Target." Rachel had closed the suitcase. Zipped it. "Yes, Thomas. You're supposed to do whatever it takes to support your family. But you can't. You won't. So I'm done. What about Maya? What about her? You think this is good for her? Watching us fight. Eating ramen 3 nights a week because you won't take a job you think is beneath your precious ego. Don't do this. Please." But she'd already done it. She'd left that afternoon. Drove away in her Honda Civic with everything she could fit and never looked back. No custody battle. No weekend visits. She'd sent divorce papers through a lawyer and signed away her parental rights like Maya was a gym membership she didn't want anymore. Thomas had taken the job at Target. He'd taken every job after that. Security guard. Delivery driver. Medical records clerk. Each one paying less than the last because gaps in your resume made employers nervous and desperation made you accept things you shouldn't. He kept Maya fed. Kept her in school. Kept them in increasingly cheaper apartments until they'd landed here, in this building where the heat barely worked and the neighbors screamed at each other through the walls. But Maya still smiled. She still made him peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with the crust cut off. She still believed he could do anything. That belief was going to break her heart. The morning after the incident, Thomas woke up on the couch with his neck screaming and Maya standing over him with her backpack on. "Dad, school." He checked his phone. 7:42 a.m. School started at 8:15. He lurched upright. "Did you eat breakfast?" "I had crackers." "That's not breakfast. It's what we have." Thomas rubbed his face. His jaw ached. His chest hurt from the compressions yesterday. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. The rhythm still echoed in his bones. "Okay, let me get dressed. We'll grab something on the way." They didn't. There wasn't time. He walked her to the bus stop and watched her climb on with the other kids. Some of them had lunch boxes. Maya had a paper bag with a cheese stick and more crackers. She waved at him through the window and he waved back. Then he went home and opened his laptop. The video had spread. Local news sites had picked it up. "Man gives CPR to tech CEO, gets fired." The headline made it sound noble, but the comment sections didn't. Half the people called him a hero. Half called him a predator. The divide was clean and vicious. If she was a man, would anyone question it? CPR doesn't require tongue. He's trained. He did exactly what he should have done. Look at him. Look at her. He saw an opportunity. Thomas closed the laptop. He couldn't read anymore. He needed to find work. He had $17 and rent was due in 12 days. He pulled up job sites and started scrolling. Dishwasher. Warehouse associate. Night custodian. He applied to 15 jobs in 2 hours. Copy and paste his resume. Write a brief cover letter. Submit. Most of them probably had automated filters that would reject him before a human ever saw his name. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Thomas Mercer. A woman's voice. Professional. "Yes. This is Jennifer Holt from Cascade Medical Center. I'm calling about the CPR incident yesterday at the Grandview Center." Thomas's stomach dropped. "Am I being sued?" "What?" No, Mr. Mercer. I'm calling because we'd like to verify your training. For our records. Your records. Catherine Price was brought to our facility. She's requested we confirm the credentials of the person who administered aid. He gave her his information, his Navy service number, the dates of his training. She thanked him and hung up. Thomas sat there staring at his phone. Catherine Price wanted to verify his credentials. Why? To press charges. To sue him? To make sure he really was trained before she destroyed him? The doorbell rang. Thomas wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door and found a man in an expensive suit. 50-something. Silver hair. The kind of face that spent time in boardrooms. Thomas Mercer, the man said. Who are you? David Grant. I'm an attorney with Price Industries. May I come in? Every instinct told Thomas to say no. Instead, he stepped aside. David Grant walked into the apartment and took in the worn furniture, the stained carpet, the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. His expression didn't change, but Thomas felt the judgment like radiation. I'll get right to the point, Grant said. Ms. Price is recovering well. She wanted me to thank you personally for your quick action. She can thank me herself if she wants. She's quite busy, but she wanted to ensure you understood the situation. Grant pulled a folder from his briefcase. The incident has generated significant media attention, some of it unfavorable to you. I noticed. Price Industries has a responsibility to its employees and its reputation. While Ms. Price is grateful for your assistance, she cannot be seen publicly supporting someone who has been accused of assault. Thomas laughed. Actually laughed. I'm being accused of assault because I saved her life. The optics are complicated. The optics. Right. So what? She's throwing me under the bus. Grant placed a paper on the coffee table. This is a non-disclosure agreement. If you sign it, you agree not to speak to the media, not to mention Ms. Price by name, and not to pursue any legal action against her or Price Industries. In exchange for what? $10,000. The number hit Thomas like cold water. $10,000. That was rent for a year. That was Maya's medical bills. That was groceries and winter coats and maybe breathing room. What if I don't sign? Then Price Industries will vigorously defend against any claims you might make. And given the video footage and witness statements, any lawsuit you filed would be costly and protracted. Thomas looked at the paper. The words blurred. She's paying me to go away. She's compensating you for your trouble. I don't want her money. I want my job back. That's between you and Bright Clean Services. They fired me because of her. Grant stood. Think about it. You have until Friday to sign. After that, the offer is withdrawn. He placed a business card next to the paper. I'll see myself out. Thomas sat there after he left. $10,000. Enough to matter. Not enough to change anything. If he signed, he was admitting guilt. If he didn't sign, he was walking away from money he desperately needed. His phone buzzed. Email from one of the jobs he'd applied to. Thank you for your interest. Unfortunately, we've decided to pursue other candidates. Another buzz. Another rejection. Another buzz. Text from Dale at Bright Clean. Official termination letter in the mail. Don't come back to the building. Thomas dropped his phone. He sat on the couch and put his head in his hands. The apartment was too quiet. He could hear the refrigerator humming. Could hear voices from the unit next door. Could hear traffic on the street below. He thought about Rachel. About how she'd looked at him in Phoenix with something like pity. Like she'd known this was coming. Like she'd seen his future and decided not to be part of it. Maybe she'd been right. That afternoon, Thomas picked Maya up from school. She was pale again but insisted she felt better. They walked home slowly. She held his hand and told him about her day. Math was hard. Reading was fun. Her friend Zoe had shared her apple at lunch. Dad, she said as they climbed the stairs. Can we have pizza tonight? Not tonight, baby. We never have pizza anymore. I know. Soon. That's what you always say. They reached their apartment. Maya went to do her homework at the kitchen table. Thomas started dinner. Soup again. There was still one can left. He'd figure out tomorrow. His phone rang. Another unknown number. Mr. Mercer, this is Rebecca Torres from Channel 5 News. We're doing a story on the CPR incident at the Grandview Center. Would you be willing to give us an interview? No. We'd compensate you for your time. How much? $500. Thomas closed his eyes. What do you want me to say? Just your side of the story. What happened? Why you acted? And if I don't, then we run with what we have. The video speaks for itself, which means you'll make me look like the bad guy. Rebecca Torres was quiet for a moment. Mr. Mercer, I've read your service record. I know you were a corpsman. I know you're trained. But right now, half the city thinks you're a predator. This is your chance to tell the truth. For $500. For the record, the money is just how we compensate sources. Thomas looked at Maya. She was bent over her math homework, chewing on her pencil. Her braid was coming loose again. She needed a haircut, new shoes, a winter coat that actually fit. When, he said, tomorrow, our studio downtown, 3 p.m. I'll be there. He hung up. Maya looked up from her homework. Who was that? She asked. Nobody important. But it was important. It was everything. Because if Thomas didn't control the narrative, someone else would. And he was tired of being voiceless. Tired of being invisible. He'd spent 3 years cleaning other people's buildings and saying yes, sir, and thank you, sir, and pretending he didn't notice when they looked through him like he was furniture. Catherine Price had looked through him that way once. Polite good mornings in the elevator. Pleasant smile. But never his name. Never a real conversation. Just the basic courtesy rich people gave to people they'd never remember. He'd saved her life anyway, and she'd let them destroy his. That night, after Maya went to bed, Thomas signed the NDA. He took a picture of his signature and emailed it to David Grant. Then he tore the paper into small pieces and threw it away. He wasn't taking their money, but he was buying himself time to figure out what came next. In the morning, he'd go to that interview. He'd tell his story, and maybe someone would listen. Catherine Price woke up in a private room at Cascade Medical Center with an 4 in her arm and a headache that felt like someone had split her skull with an axe. Ms. Price. A nurse appeared at her bedside. Young, competent, the kind of efficient kindness that came from doing the same job 1,000 times. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. You had a cardiac event. Stress-induced arrhythmia. Your heart stopped for approximately 45 seconds. The words didn't make sense at first. Catherine tried to sit up, and the room spun. My heart stopped. You're very lucky. Someone performed CPR immediately. Dr. Patterson will be in to see you shortly. The nurse left. Catherine lay there, trying to piece together what had happened. She remembered walking through the lobby. She'd been on the phone with her lawyer about the Henderson contract. Then nothing. A blank space. And then paramedics and bright lights and people asking her questions she couldn't answer. Someone performed CPR. The janitor. That's what the security guard had said. The janitor kissed her. No, not kissed. CPR. There was a difference. She knew there was a difference. But her memory was fog and confusion and the feeling of coming back from somewhere very far away. Her phone was on the bedside table. 47 missed calls. 62 text messages. Catherine scrolled through them. Her assistant. Her brother. Her board members. 3 different journalists. Everyone wanted to know what happened. Everyone wanted a statement. She opened her email instead. There, in her inbox, a message from David Grant. Spoke with Thomas Mercer. NDA signed. Payment pending. Thomas Mercer. The janitor. Catherine pulled up a browser and searched his name. The video loaded immediately. Shaky phone footage. Lying on the marble floor. Him, kneeling over her. The angle was wrong. It looked wrong. She watched his hands on her chest. Watched his mouth cover hers. Watched him breathe into her lungs. That man saved your life, she thought. The comments below the video were vicious. Catherine closed her browser. She didn't need to read them. She'd spent 20 years building Price Industries from a small defense contractor into a major player in aerospace technology. She knew exactly how the internet worked. Outrage and judgment and people making decisions about complex situations from 30 seconds of video. Dr. Patterson arrived an hour later. He was older, gray at the temples, with a calm demeanor of someone who'd delivered bad news many times before. Your heart stopped because of a combination of stress and an undiagnosed arrhythmia, he said. We're going to keep you here for observation, run some more tests, and put you on medication. But Ms. Price, I need to be direct with you. You're 42 years old. You work 80-hour weeks. You don't sleep enough. You don't eat enough. Your body is telling you to slow down. I don't have time to slow down. You had time to die. The words hit harder than the headache. Catherine looked away. How long do I need to stay here? 72 hours minimum. That's not acceptable. It's not negotiable. After he left, Catherine sat in the silence of her hospital room. 72 hours. 3 days. The Henderson contract needed to close this week. The board meeting was on Friday. The prototype demonstration was next Monday. She had a company to run. People depending on her. Investors expecting returns. She reached for her phone and called David Grant. Catherine. Thank God. How are you? Fine. Tell me about the janitor. Thomas Mercer. 38 years old. Former Navy corpsman. Single father. He signed the NDA this morning. What did we pay him? 10,000. That's it. David hesitated. He didn't take the money. He signed the NDA but declined the payment. Catherine frowned. Why? He didn't say. But Catherine, there's something else. Is scheduled to do an interview with Channel 5 News. Tomorrow afternoon. He signed an NDA and is doing an interview. The NDA prevents him from speaking about you specifically or taking legal action. It doesn't prevent him from telling his story. Catherine felt a flash of anger. Then something else. Curiosity. Send me everything we have on him. Employment records, background check, everything. Catherine, I don't think that's. Send it. She hung up. An hour later, David emailed her a file. Catherine opened it on her tablet. Thomas Mercer. Born in Oregon. Father deceased. Mother whereabouts unknown. Navy service from 2005 to 2011. Corpsman. Multiple commendations. Medical discharge after an injury in Afghanistan. Married briefly. Divorced. One daughter, Maya, age 8. Employment history was a disaster. 24 jobs in 10 years. Nothing lasting more than a year. Security guard, delivery driver, warehouse worker, janitor. The trajectory of someone falling. Someone who'd had skills and training and couldn't find a place to use them. Current address was in a neighborhood Catherine recognized. Not the worst part of Seattle, but close. She pulled up Google Street View. The building looked tired. 3 stories. Peeling paint. She thought about her own address. Penthouse downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows. View of the water. Doorman. Parking garage. The building had a gym she never used and a pool she'd never swum in. This man lived somewhere that probably had broken elevators and thin walls. This man had saved her life, and she'd let David pay him off like he was a problem to be solved. Catherine picked up her phone again. David, I want security footage from the Grandview Center. Everything from yesterday morning. We already reviewed it for the police report. I want to see it myself. The footage arrived an hour later. Catherine watched it on her tablet, alone in her hospital room. The camera angle was from above, looking down at the lobby. She saw herself walking. Phone to her ear. Then she collapsed. Just dropped. Her briefcase hit the floor and slid across the marble. People froze. Stared. Nobody moved. Then Thomas Mercer ran into frame. He moved fast. Dropped to his knees beside her. Felt for a pulse. Tilted her head back. Started compressions. Catherine watched him work. She counted the compressions. 30. Exactly 30. Then 2 breaths. Then 30 more. His form was perfect. Locked elbows. Full chest recoil. He wasn't panicking. Wasn't fumbling. He'd done this before. The video continued. 60 seconds. 90. 2 minutes. Thomas didn't stop. His arms had to be burning. His back had to be screaming. But he kept going until she gasped and opened her eyes. Then security grabbed him. Catherine played it again. And again. Each time, she noticed something new. The way Thomas had abandoned his cleaning cart without hesitation. The way he'd blocked the crowd from getting too close. The way he'd told someone to call 911 before he'd even started compressions. This wasn't a man who'd seen an opportunity. This was a man who'd done exactly what he was trained to do. And they'd fired him for it. Catherine set down the tablet. Her chest hurt. Not from the arrhythmia. From something else. Shame, maybe. Or guilt. She'd built a company worth $800 million. She employed 3,000 people. She'd won awards for innovation and leadership. She sat on charity boards and spoke at conferences about empowering the next generation. And when someone saved her life, she'd let her lawyers silence him with an NDA and her security team take his job. Her brother Nathan called that evening. He was in San Francisco for a conference, but he'd seen the news. "Are you okay? Why didn't you call me?" "I'm fine." "You died, Catherine. Your heart stopped. For 45 seconds. That's not fine." She didn't want to talk about it. "The company needs someone to cover the board meeting on Friday." "Forget the board meeting. You almost died." "But I didn't. Because someone saved me." Nathan was quiet for a moment. "The janitor. His name is Thomas Mercer. I saw the video. He did CPR. That's his job, isn't it? To help people." "His job was to clean floors. He was a corpsman. In the Navy. He served in Afghanistan. And now is unemployed because he saved my life." "Catherine, you can't fix everyone." "I'm not trying to fix everyone. I'm trying to fix this." She hung up before he could argue. Nathan meant well, but he'd never understood. He'd inherited money from their father and invested it safely and lived in a nice house with his nice family and never took real risks. Catherine had taken every risk. She'd started Price Industries in a garage with 2 employees and a government contract nobody thought she could deliver on. She'd delivered, but somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be the person taking the risk, to be the person everyone doubted, to be the person who did the right thing and got punished for it. Thomas Mercer knew that feeling. The next morning, Catherine discharged herself against medical advice. Dr. Patterson tried to stop her, but she signed the forms and left anyway. Her assistant brought clothes and a car. By noon, Catherine was back in her office on the 43rd floor of the Grandview Center. The building felt different now. She'd walked through this lobby 1,000 times. Now she could see the exact spot where she'd collapsed. Someone had cleaned the marble, polished away any trace of what had happened. But Thomas Mercer's cleaning cart was gone. His locker was empty. His name had been removed from the employee directory. They'd erased him. Catherine went to her desk and pulled up the news. Channel 5 had promoted the interview. "Fired Hero Speaks Out. The Truth About the Grandview Incident." It was scheduled to air at 6 p.m. She should ignore it. David had advised her to ignore it. Let the story run its course. Let Thomas Mercer say whatever he wanted. The NDA protected her. The company was protected. In a week, everyone would forget. But Catherine didn't want to forget. She called the head of HR. "I want the file on Thomas Mercer's termination from Bright Clean Services." "Ms. Price, we don't have jurisdiction over their employment decisions. We contract with them. We have leverage. Get me the file." The file arrived by 3 p.m. Catherine read through it. The termination was listed as violation of protocol. Thomas had been suspended immediately following the incident. He'd been fired officially the next day. The reason given was putting hands on a tenant without authorization. No mention of CPR. No mention of saving a life. Just corporate language designed to protect the company from liability. Catherine picked up her phone and called the CEO of Bright Clean Services. "Catherine, I heard about your health scare. Terrible business. Frank, why did you fire Thomas Mercer? He violated protocol. You know how it is. We have rules for a reason. He saved my life. And we're grateful. But he should have called 911 and waited. That's the policy. Your policy would have let me die." Frank was quiet. Then, carefully, "We can't have employees making judgment calls about when to intervene and when to wait for professionals. It opens us up to liability. So you'd rather I was dead than deal with potential liability." "That's not what I'm saying." "It's exactly what you're saying. Frank, I want you to reinstate him." "I can't do that." "You can, and you will, or Price Industries will find a new cleaning contractor." The threat hung there. Bright Clean had 6 contracts with Price Industries. Losing them would cost Frank millions. "Catherine, be reasonable." "I'm being reasonable." Thomas Mercer did the right thing. He shouldn't be punished for it. Reinstate him. Full back pay. Written apology. And I want his record cleared. And if I don't, then you'll need to explain to your board why you lost your biggest client because you fired a man for saving someone's life. She hung up. At 6 p.m., Catherine sat in her office and watched the interview on her computer. Thomas Mercer sat across from Rebecca Torres in the Channel 5 studio. He wore a button-down shirt that was clean but worn. His hands were folded on the table. He looked tired. "Thomas, thank you for joining us," Rebecca said. "Can you walk us through what happened?" Thomas nodded. "I was working, emptying trash cans in the lobby. I saw Ms. Price collapse. She hit the ground hard. I ran over and checked for a pulse. There wasn't one. So I started CPR. You didn't call 911 first. Someone else was already calling. My job was to keep her alive until they arrived. That's what CPR is for. You keep blood flowing to the brain until professionals can take over. Some people have suggested your actions were inappropriate." Thomas's jaw tightened. "I gave her CPR. Standard protocol. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. I tilted her head back, pinched her nose, made a seal with my mouth, and breathed into her lungs. That's how rescue breaths work. There's nothing inappropriate about saving someone's life." "You were fired the next day." "Yes. How do you feel about that?" Thomas looked directly at the camera. "I feel like I did the right thing and got punished for it. But I'd do it again. Because that's what you do. When someone needs help, you help them. You don't think about whether they are rich or poor. You don't think about whether it's your job. You just act." Catherine felt something crack in her chest. "What would you say to Ms. Price if you could talk to her?" Rebecca asked. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "I'd say I hope she's okay. I'd say I'm glad I was there. And I'd say I don't regret it. Not for a second." The interview ended. Catherine sat in her office, alone, and made a decision. Thomas's phone wouldn't stop ringing. The interview aired at 6 p.m. on Thursday. By 7, he had 23 missed calls. By 8, his voicemail was full. By 9, there were reporters outside his apartment building. Maya watched from the window. "Dad, why are all those people here?" "They want to talk to me about work. About when you got fired." Something like that. She looked at him with those eyes that saw too much. "Are we in trouble?" "No, baby. We're fine." But they weren't fine. Thomas had $12 in his checking account. Rent was due in 7 days. He'd applied to 30 jobs in the past 2 days and gotten 22 rejections. The other 8 hadn't responded yet. The interview was supposed to help. Tell his side. Show people he'd done the right thing. Instead, it had made everything louder. His phone buzzed. Text from a number he didn't recognize. "You're a hero. Don't let them break you." Another buzz. "Just saw your interview. You did the right thing." Another. "My dad died because nobody knew CPR. Thank you for being brave." Thomas read through them. 50 messages. 100. People he'd never met, telling him things that made his throat tight. But none of them were job offers. None of them paid rent. At 10 p.m., someone knocked on the door. Thomas looked through the peephole and saw a woman. 30s. Professional. Holding a briefcase. He opened the door. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Mercer, my name is Lisa Chen. I'm an attorney. I'd like to talk to you about representing you in a wrongful termination suit against Bright Clean Services. I can't afford a lawyer. I work on contingency. You don't pay unless we win. May I come in?" Thomas let her in. Maya had gone to bed, so they talked quietly in the kitchen. Lisa laid out her case. Wrongful termination. Violation of public policy. Thomas had acted as a good Samaritan and been punished for it. They could sue for back pay, emotional distress, punitive damages. "How much are we talking about?" Thomas asked. "If we win, could be 6 figures. 6 figures. The number was absurd. Thomas had never had more than $2,000 at once in his entire life. What's the catch? The catch is that it could take years. And Bright Clean will fight hard. They have insurance and corporate lawyers. We'd be going up against a machine. So why do it?" Lisa leaned forward. "Because it's right. And because I think we can win. But Mr. Mercer, I need you to understand what you'd be signing up for. This would be public. There would be depositions, court appearances, more media attention. Your life would be under a microscope." Thomas thought about Maya, about her pale face and her questions about whether they were in trouble, about the way she'd looked at him this morning when he told her they were having crackers for breakfast again. "I need to think about it," he said. "Of course. Take the weekend. Call me Monday." Lisa handed him her card and left. Thomas sat at the kitchen table until after midnight. 6 figures. Years of fighting. More tension. More judgment. Was it worth it? His phone buzzed. Another text. Unknown number. Mr. Mercer, this is Catherine Price. I'd like to speak with you. Tomorrow, if possible. Please call my assistant at this number to arrange a time. Thomas stayed at the message. Catherine Price. The woman whose life he'd saved. The woman who'd signed an NDA to keep him quiet. The woman who'd let him get fired. She wanted to talk. Thomas didn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch and watched the ceiling and tried to figure out what game she was playing. Rich people didn't just call the help to chat. They wanted something. Control, probably. Or insurance. Maybe the interview had spooked her. Maybe she wanted to make sure he stayed quiet. He called the number in the morning. A woman answered on the first ring. Professional voice. Efficient. Ms. Price's office. This is Thomas Mercer. She sent me a message. Yes, Mr. Mercer. Ms. Price would like to meet with you today at 2 p.m. Would that work for you? Where? Her office. 43rd floor, Grandview Center. The building where he'd been fired. The lobby where he'd saved her life. Thomas felt anger flash hot in his chest. Tell her I'll be there. He hung up. Then he texted Lisa Chen. Meeting with Catherine Price today. Should I bring you? She responded immediately. Yes. Don't go alone. What time and where? Thomas told her. Lisa said she'd meet him in the lobby at 1:45. He spent the morning getting Maya ready for school. She still looked pale, but her fever was gone. She ate toast and asked if they could go to the library after school. Not today, baby. I have a meeting. For a new job. Maybe. We'll see. She hugged him before she got on the bus. Thomas held on a little longer than usual. When he let go, Maya looked up at him with worried eyes. Dad, you're scaring me. I'm not trying to scare you. Then why do you look so sad? He forced a smile. I'm not sad. Just tired. I'll be better tonight. Okay? We can make pancakes for dinner. We don't have pancake mix. Then we'll figure something else out. The bus pulled away. Thomas walked home and changed into the only dress shirt he owned. Navy blue. A little tight across the shoulders now. He hadn't worn it since the job interview at Bright Clean 3 years ago. He took the bus downtown. Lisa was waiting in the lobby of the Grandview Center. She wore a gray suit and carried a leather briefcase. Professional armor. Ready? She asked. No. Good. Stay nervous. It'll keep you sharp. They took the elevator to the 43rd floor. Thomas hadn't been up here before. His job had been the lower floors. Retail and parking garage. The 43rd floor was executive territory. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Modern furniture. Art on the walls that probably cost more than his car. The receptionist led them to a conference room. Catherine Price was already there. She stood when they entered. She looked different than Thomas remembered. Smaller, somehow. More human. She wore a dark suit and her hair was pulled back. No jewelry except a watch. Mr. Mercer, thank you for coming. She extended her hand. Thomas shook it. Her grip was firm. This is my attorney, Lisa Chen. Catherine nodded at Lisa. I assumed you'd bring representation. This is David Grant, my counsel. David Grant, the man who'd offered Thomas the NDA. He sat at the far end of the table with a folder in front of him. Everyone's Saturday. Catherine folded her hands on the table. I'll be direct, she said. I owe you an apology. Thomas waited. You saved my life. And instead of thanking you properly, I let my lawyers treat you like a liability. I let you get fired. I offered you money to stay quiet. That was wrong. Yes, Thomas said. It was. I've spent the past 2 days reviewing what happened. The security footage. Your employment records. Your service history. I know who you are now. What you've done. What you've sacrificed. And I want to make this right. Lisa leaned forward. How? Catherine looked at her. Then back at Thomas. I've spoken with Bright Clean Services. You've been reinstated. Full back pay for the days you were suspended. Written apology. Clean record. Thomas felt the words hit him. Reinstated. Job back. Back pay. It was more than he'd hoped for. It was everything he'd needed. Additionally, Catherine continued, I'd like to offer you a position with Price Industries. Head of Facility Safety. Salary of $75,000 a year. Full benefits. Health insurance. Retirement matching. You'd be responsible for training all our staff in emergency response procedures, making sure what you did becomes standard protocol across all our properties. The number hit harder than anything else. 75,000. Thomas made barely 30 at Bright Clean. This was more than double. This was health insurance for Maya. This was groceries without counting pennies. This was breathing room. Why? Thomas asked. Because you're qualified. Because you did the right thing. And because I don't want anyone else to be punished for saving a life. You're trying to buy my silence. Catherine didn't blink. No, I'm trying to do the right thing. You can take the job or not. Either way, you're reinstated at Bright Clean. Either way, I'm creating a Good Samaritan fund that will compensate any Price Industries employee who acts to help someone in an emergency. This isn't about silence. This is about fixing a system that punishes people for being decent. Lisa spoke up. And if he decides to sue, then I'll respect that decision. We'll fight it. We have good lawyers. But I hope he doesn't. I hope we can move forward. Thomas looked at Lisa. She gave him a small nod. Your choice. He thought about Maya. About pancakes for dinner and crackers for breakfast. About the electric bill and the rent and the stack of medical bills. About 6 figures in a lawsuit that might take years versus 75,000 starting now. I need to see it in writing, Thomas said. David Grant slid a folder across the table. Contract. Benefits package. Job description. Everything outlined. Thomas opened it. Lisa leaned over and read with him. The salary was real. The benefits were comprehensive. The job description was legitimate. This wasn't a token position. Catherine was creating a real role. I need to think about it, Thomas said. Of course. Take the weekend. Catherine stood. Mr. Moser, I want you to know something. I watched the security footage. I saw what you did. You didn't hesitate. You didn't think about who I was or what I could do for you. You just acted. That's rare. That's valuable. And I'd be honored to have you work with me. She extended her hand again. Thomas shook it. I'll call you Monday, he said. I'll be waiting. Thomas and Lisa left. They didn't speak until they were in the elevator. What do you think? Thomas asked. I think she's serious. I think the offer is legitimate. But Thomas, you need to understand what you'd be giving up. If you take this job, you can't sue. You can't speak publicly about what happened beyond what you've already said. You're closing that door. What if the door I'm opening is better? Then you take it. But make sure you're opening it for the right reasons. Not just because you're desperate. The elevator doors opened. Thomas stepped out into the lobby. The same lobby where he'd knelt over Catherine Price and brought her back to life. The same marble floor. The same fountain. Everything looked different now. He went home. Maya was already there, let in by their neighbor Mrs. Alvarez, who watched her sometimes. She was doing homework at the kitchen table. How was the meeting? She asked. Good. Really good. Did you get a job? Maybe. I'll know on Monday. Maya smiled. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her in days. Can we have pancakes? Yeah, baby. We can have pancakes. He made them from scratch. Flour and eggs and milk. They ate dinner together at the kitchen table, and Maya told him about her day, reading and math, and how Zoe had shared her apple again. I like Zoe, Maya said. She's nice. That's good. It's important to have nice friends. Dad, are things going to be okay? Thomas looked at his daughter. 8 years old. Too thin. Too worried. Too aware of things no kid should have to think about. Yeah, he said. Things are going to be okay. He hoped he was telling the truth. The press conference was Catherine's idea. She'd called Thomas on Monday morning. He'd already decided to take the job. $75,000. Health insurance. A future that didn't involve counting pennies and wondering which bill to pay first. But Catherine had another request. I want to make a public statement, she said. About what happened. About what you did. And I want you there with me. Why? Because the story got told wrong. And we need to tell it right. Thomas had agreed. Now, standing backstage at the Grandview Center's conference hall, he was regretting it. His new shirt felt too stiff. His tie was choking him. Maya was with Mrs. Alvarez for the afternoon, but she'd made him promise to tell her everything. Lisa Chen stood next to him. She'd insisted on being present. Just in case, she'd said. Catherine appeared from the other direction. She wore a navy suit and looked calm. Professional. Like she did this every day. Maybe she did. Ready? She asked Thomas. No. She smiled. Me neither. Let's go. They walked onto the stage together. The room was packed. Reporters. Cameras. Bright lights that made Thomas squint. He saw faces in the crowd. Some he recognized from television. Some were strangers. All of them were watching. Catherine stepped up to the podium. Thomas stood beside her, hands clasped in front of him, trying not to look as terrified as he felt. Thank you all for coming, Catherine began. 2 weeks ago, I collapsed in the lobby of this building. My heart stopped. I was clinically dead for 45 seconds. If not for the immediate actions of one man, I would not be standing here today. She gestured to Thomas. Every camera in the room turned toward him. Thomas Mercer was working as a custodian in this building. When he saw me collapse, he didn't hesitate. He ran to help. He performed CPR with textbook precision. He saved my life. And then, because of a series of terrible decisions by people who should have known better, he was fired. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I've spent the past 2 weeks investigating what happened. How a man who did everything right could be punished for it. And what I found made me ashamed. Mr. Mercer was terminated not because he violated any meaningful protocol, but because people were afraid. Afraid of liability. Afraid of bad publicity. Afraid of the optics. Catherine's voice hardened. I was one of those people. When my lawyers suggested we offer Mr. Mercer money to sign a non-disclosure agreement, I agreed. I was recovering from a cardiac event, and I wanted the situation to go away quietly. I didn't think about what that meant for him. I didn't consider that by trying to protect myself, I was complicit in his punishment. She turned to Thomas. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. The room was silent. Thomas felt every eye on him. He prepared words. Catherine had helped him write them. But standing here, looking out at the cameras and the reporters and the weight of everything, the script felt false. So he spoke from the chest instead. My name is Thomas Mercer. I'm 38 years old. I'm a single father. I have a daughter named Maya who's 8 and who's the best thing that ever happened to me. Before this job, I was in the Navy. I was a corpsman. That means I was trained to save lives. And that training doesn't expire. When you see someone who needs help, you help them. That's not heroic. That's human. He paused, found his breath. When I saw Ms. Price collapse, I didn't think about who she was. I didn't think about money or lawsuits or whether it was my job. I saw someone dying and I knew I could help. So I did. I gave her CPR. I brought her back. And yeah, I got fired for it. Yeah, I spent 2 weeks wondering how I was going to feed my daughter or pay rent. But I'd do it again. Tomorrow. Next week. 10 years from now. Because saving a life is always the right thing to do. His voice cracked. The only thing I regret is that we live in a world where doing the right thing gets you punished. Where companies care more about liability than lives. Where people would rather watch someone die than risk getting sued. That's not the world I want my daughter to grow up in. And if telling my story helps change that even a little bit, then everything I went through was worth it. The room erupted. Questions shouted from every direction. Catherine raised her hand. We'll take a few questions. A reporter stood. Ms. Price, you mentioned changing protocol. What specifically are you implementing? Price Industries is creating a Good Samaritan policy. Any employee who acts to help someone in an emergency will be protected. Not just protected, commended. We're also partnering with the American Heart Association to provide free CPR training to all our staff. And we're establishing a fund to support employees who face termination or legal action for acting as Good Samaritans in other companies. Another reporter. Mr. Mercer, what's next for you? Thomas glanced at Catherine. She nodded. I've accepted a position with Price Industries. Head of Facility Safety. I'll be responsible for training staff and implementing emergency response protocols, making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. What about your wrongful termination suit? Thomas looked at Lisa. She stepped forward. We've decided not to pursue legal action. Mr. Mercer has been reinstated by Bright Clean Services with full back pay and a formal apology. He's chosen to move forward rather than look back. A woman in the front row stood. Ms. Price, your brother Nathan released a statement this morning questioning your judgment. He claims you're letting emotion override business sense. How do you respond? Catherine's expression didn't change. My brother is entitled to his opinion. But this isn't about emotion. This is about doing what's right. If that's poor business sense, then I'm guilty as charged. More questions. More answers. It went on for 30 minutes. Thomas let Catherine handle most of it. She was better at this. Smoother. But occasionally she'd turn to him and let him speak. Let him tell his truth. Finally, it ended. Catherine thanked everyone for coming. She and Thomas walked off stage together. Backstage, she let out a long breath. That was harder than I expected. You did good, Thomas said. So did you. She turned to face him. Thomas, I meant what I said up there. About being sorry. About wanting to make this right. But I need you to understand something. This job isn't charity. I'm not hiring you because I feel guilty. I'm hiring you because you're qualified and because I need someone who understands what it means to act when it matters. I know. Good. Because I'm going to work you hard. This isn't going to be easy. Thomas smiled. Easy doesn't pay $75,000 a year. Catherine laughed. Actually laughed. It was the first time Thomas had seen her look genuinely happy. Start Monday. HR will set you up. And Thomas, thank you. For saving my life. For telling the truth. For not letting them make you into something you're not. Thank you for giving me a chance. They shook hands. Then Catherine left, surrounded by assistants and lawyers and the machinery of her world. Thomas stood there for a moment, alone in the empty backstage area, and let himself breathe. His phone buzzed. Text from Maya. Mrs. Alvarez had let her use her phone. Dad, did you do good? Thomas smiled. Yeah, baby. I did good. He picked her up an hour later. Maya ran to him and he caught her, lifting her up even though she was getting too big for it. Mrs. Alvarez showed me the news. You were on TV. I was. Were you scared? Terrified. But you did it anyway. Yeah, I did it anyway. They went home. That night, Thomas cooked real dinner. Chicken and rice and vegetables. Not because they had to stretch food, but because they wanted to. After dinner, Maya did a homework while Thomas filled out paperwork for his new job. Insurance forms. Direct deposit. Emergency contacts. The emergency contact line stopped him. He'd been putting Dale's name there for 3 years. His old supervisor who'd fired him. Now he wrote down Catherine's assistant. Someone who might actually help if something went wrong. At bedtime, Maya asked him to read to her. He picked up the book they'd been working through. Fantasy story about a girl who saved a kingdom. Maya loved it. Dad, she said when he finished the chapter. Yeah. Is everything really going to be okay now? Thomas thought about it. About the new job and the salary and the insurance. About the bills he could pay and the groceries he could buy and the breathing room ahead of them. About Catherine Price and the press conference and the way the story had finally been told right. Yeah, he said. Everything's really going to be okay. Maya smiled and closed her eyes. Thomas kissed her forehead and turned off the light. 6 months later, Thomas stood in the same conference hall where the press conference had been held. But today it looked different. Chairs arranged in rows. A banner on the wall. Grand opening, Thomas Mercer Memorial Safety Training Center. Not Thomas Mercer. That's what Catherine had wanted to call it at first. But Thomas had other ideas. Daniel Mercer Memorial Safety Training Center. The banner read. His father's name. The man who'd taught Thomas that helping people mattered more than anything else. The man who died when Thomas was 12 because nobody nearby knew CPR. Maya stood next to him, wearing a new dress. She'd grown 2 inches in 6 months. Her hair was longer. Her face had color. She looked healthy. Happy. Catherine gave a speech. She talked about the importance of training. About creating a culture where helping wasn't just allowed but expected. About the hundreds of employees who'd already been certified through the program. Then she called Thomas to the podium. He looked out at the crowd. His team. The people he'd trained over the past 6 months. Some were from Price Industries. Some were from other companies who'd adopted the program. All of them knew CPR now. All of them could save a life. My dad used to say that the measure of a person isn't what they do when people are watching. It's what they do when nobody's looking. When there's no reward. No recognition. Just someone who needs help, and you're the one there to give it. Thomas paused. This center exists because my dad believed that. Because Catherine Price believed it. And because we all have the power to make a difference. One person. One moment. One choice to act when it matters. The crowd applauded. Maya grabbed his hand and squeezed. After the ceremony, people came up to thank him. To share stories. A woman whose husband had collapsed at work and been saved by a coworker who'd taken the training. A man who'd used the Heimlich maneuver at a restaurant after learning it in Thomas's class. Small moments. Big impact. Catherine found him near the end. You did it, she said. We did it. No, you did it. I just wrote the checks. Thomas smiled. Those were some pretty important checks. She laughed. Fair enough. But Thomas, seriously. What you built here. What you're teaching people. It matters. My board wanted me to shut this down after 3 months. Said it was too expensive. Too much liability. But I showed them the numbers. 17 lives saved in 6 months. 17. Because people knew what to do. 17's a good number. It's an incredible number. Catherine looked around the room. At the training equipment. The CPR dummies. The AED machines mounted on every wall. My father died of a heart attack when I was 19. He was at a business meeting. Everyone just stood there. Nobody knew what to do. If someone like you had been there, maybe he'd still be alive. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's why this matters so much to me. Why I push so hard. She met his eyes. Thank you for not giving up. For not letting them break you. Thank you for giving me a reason to keep going. That night, Thomas and Maya went to their new apartment. 2 bedrooms. Good neighborhood. Working heat. Maya had decorated her room with posters and books and stuffed animals. She had friends from school. She had a doctor she saw regularly. She had everything she needed. Thomas tucked her in, and she looked up at him with those eyes that still saw too much. Dad, are you happy? He thought about it. About where they'd been 6 months ago. About crackers for breakfast and eviction notices and wondering how he'd survive. About the moment he'd knelt over Catherine Price and breathed life back into her lungs without knowing how it would change everything. Yeah, baby, I'm happy. Good. Because you deserve to be happy. Thomas kissed her forehead. So do you. He left her room and walked to the kitchen. Made coffee. Sat at the table. His table. In his apartment. That he could afford. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photo Maya had insisted on taking earlier. The 2 of them in front of the banner. Her smiling. Him smiling. Both of them looking like they'd finally made it. He sent the photo to Lisa Chen. She'd become a friend over the past few months. She texted back immediately. Proud of you. Thomas set down his phone and looked around his apartment. At the furniture that wasn't falling apart. At the refrigerator that was actually full. At the calendar on the wall that had Maya's school events marked in colorful pen. 6 months ago, he'd been invisible. A janitor nobody noticed. A single father barely surviving. A man who'd done the right thing and been crushed for it. Now he was Thomas Mercer, head of facility safety. Father. Teacher. The man who'd saved Catherine Price and refused to be silenced. The man who'd saved himself. He finished his coffee and went to bed. Tomorrow he'd go back to work. Tomorrow he'd train more people. Tomorrow he'd make sure that when someone collapsed, when someone needed help, there would be someone there who knew what to do. Tomorrow he'd keep building the world he wanted Maya to grow up in. But tonight, he slept. Peacefully. In his own bed. In his own home. Safe. Secure. Finally.